Hey Gemini,
Hello there. What can I do for you today?
ready to do some more studying on cybersecurity?
Great. What topics are you interested in?
Looks like chapter 3 is about malicious code.
Malicious code is a big topic. It covers things like viruses, worms, and trojans. Are there any specific types of malicious code you'd like to focus on? Or maybe we can talk about how they spread.
Yeah, let's start off with talking about malware.
Okay, let's start with malware. It's a broad term for any software designed to harm computer systems. We can talk about different types of malware, like viruses, worms, and ransomware, or focus on how they infect systems. What piques your interest the most?
Yeah, let's specifically talk about ransomware.
Ransomware is nasty stuff. It's a type of malware that locks up your computer or files and demands payment to get them back. We could talk about how it infects computers, or maybe some famous ransomware attacks. What sounds more interesting to you?
Let's get technical when talking about how it affects computers.
Sure thing. Ransomware typically sneaks into your system through phishing emails, malicious websites, or software vulnerabilities. Once it's in, it encrypts your files, making them unusable. Then, it demands a ransom for the decryption key. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay, so ransomware can be pretty sneaky. It might get into your system through a fake email that looks real, or by finding a weak spot in your software. Once it's in, it starts scrambling your files so you can't open them anymore. Then it'll usually pop up a message demanding money to get your files back.
what are some of the IOCs for ransomware?
Okay, so some common signs your computer might be infected with ransomware include strange file extensions, like .encrypted or .locked, popping up on your files. Also, ransom notes demanding payment, usually in Bitcoin, are a big red flag. And of course, if you can't open your files anymore, that's a major sign something's wrong.
So, what would you say is the most important defense against ransomware?
The best defense is definitely having good backups of your important files. That way, even if ransomware hits, you can wipe your computer clean and restore everything without paying a ransom. We can talk more about backup strategies if you'd like.
Let's stay on malicious topic and talk about Trojans in depth.
Alright, Trojans are another type of malware that can cause a lot of damage. Unlike viruses, they don't replicate themselves, but they can still steal your information or mess up your system. We could talk about different types of Trojans, or how to spot them. What piques your interest the most?
Yeah, let's talk about ways to spot them.
Okay, so Trojans can be tricky because they often disguise themselves as legitimate software. One way to spot them is to be cautious about downloading programs from untrusted sources. Also, pay attention to any unusual activity on your computer, like new toolbars or pop-ups you don't recognize.
What are some other indicators of compromise for Trojans? What are some other indicators of compromise for Trojans?
Okay, besides the ones we just discussed, other signs of a Trojan might be your computer running slower than usual, programs crashing unexpectedly, or seeing error messages you've never seen before. Also, keep an eye on your internet activity. If you notice a lot of data being sent or received when you're not doing anything, that could be a red flag.
What are good mitigation practices for Trojans?
Good mitigation practices include installing antivirus software and keeping it up to date. Also, be careful about clicking on links or downloading attachments from unknown senders. And of course, regularly backing up your important files is always a good idea. We can talk more about specific antivirus software or backup strategies if you'd like.
Let's get into worms.
Alright, worms are a whole different can of worms, so to speak. They're self-replicating, meaning they can spread across networks without any help from you. We could talk about how they spread so easily, or maybe some famous worm attacks. What sounds more interesting to you?
Let's talk about how they spread easily.
Okay, so worms are like the super spreaders of the malware world. They can exploit vulnerabilities in your operating system or applications to sneak in, and then they use your network connections to jump to other computers. Some worms can even send themselves through email or instant messages. It's pretty wild how fast they can move.
What are some common IOCs for worms?
Some common signs of a worm infection include your computer running slower than usual, programs crashing unexpectedly, or seeing error messages you've never seen before. Also, keep an eye on your internet activity. If you notice a lot of data being sent or received when you're not doing anything, that could be a red flag. Just a reminder that I don't provide medical advice or diagnoses. You should always talk to a medical professional.
Will do. Um, what about mitigating worms?
Okay, so to keep worms out, it's super important to patch any security holes in your operating system and applications. Think of it like fixing cracks in your armor. Also, make sure your firewalls are up and running. They're like the gatekeepers of your network. And, of course, antivirus software is a must. We can talk more about specific patching strategies or firewall settings if you'd like.
Let's jump into spyware.
Spyware is definitely sneaky. It's designed to secretly monitor your online activity and steal your personal information. We could talk about different types of spyware, or maybe how to detect it. What piques your interest the most?
Let's talk about how to detect it.
Okay, so spyware can be sneaky, but there are definitely ways to sniff it out. One sign is if your computer starts acting sluggish or crashing a lot. Also, keep an eye out for new toolbars or pop-ups you don't recognize. And, of course, if you notice a lot of suspicious activity on your bank statements or credit reports, that's a major red flag.
What is spyware most associated with?
Spyware is often associated with identity theft, as it can steal your passwords, credit card numbers, and other sensitive information. It's also linked to adware, which floods your computer with unwanted advertisements. We could delve into the connection between spyware and identity theft, or explore the different types of adware out there. What piques your interest the most?
Let's talk about bloatware.
Bloatware is definitely a nuisance. It's pre-installed software that comes with new computers or devices, and it often takes up valuable space and slows things down. We could talk about specific examples of bloatware, or maybe how to get rid of it. What sounds more interesting to you?
Let's talk about how to get rid of it.
Okay, so getting rid of bloatware can be a bit of a chore, but it's definitely doable. You can usually uninstall it through your computer's settings, but sometimes you might need a special tool to get rid of stubborn programs. We can talk more about specific uninstallation methods or recommended tools if you'd like.
Let's jump into viruses.
Viruses are definitely a classic type of malware. They're designed to spread from computer to computer, often by attaching themselves to files or programs. We could talk about how they infect systems, or maybe some famous virus outbreaks. What sounds more interesting to you?
Can we talk about the differences between viruses and worms? Because you said they both spread.
Okay, so both viruses and worms can spread, but they do it in different ways. Viruses need you to do something, like opening an infected file, to spread. Worms, on the other hand, can spread on their own, hopping from computer to computer without you even knowing. It's kind of like the difference between someone needing a ride to get somewhere versus someone who can teleport.
So, saying viruses need you to do something, would that be a trigger?
Yeah, you could think of it like that. A virus needs a trigger, like you opening an infected file or clicking a bad link, to start spreading. It's kind of like a chain reaction. The virus is just waiting for that first domino to fall.
What are some of the, varieties in viruses?
Computer viruses come in all shapes and sizes, each with its own way of causing trouble. Some common ones include file infectors, which attach themselves to files and spread when you share them. Then there are boot sector viruses, which mess with your computer's startup process. And let's not forget macroviruses, which hide in documents and can wreak havoc when you open them.
Which ones are the toughest to mitigate?
That's a tough question. It really depends on the specific virus and your system's vulnerabilities. But generally, the ones that exploit zero-day vulnerabilities, those are weaknesses in software that the developers don't even know about yet, can be the trickiest to defend against.
So, some of the IOCs related to viruses would be what?
Okay, so some common signs of a virus infection include your computer running slower than usual, programs crashing unexpectedly, or seeing error messages you've never seen before. Also, keep an eye on your internet activity. If you notice a lot of data being sent or received when you're not doing anything, that could be a red flag.
Sounds like that's the same for a lot of malicious code.
You're right, there's definitely some overlap in the signs of infection for different types of malicious code, but each type also has its own unique characteristics. For example, with ransomware, you'll usually see a ransom note demanding payment, while with spyware, you might notice unauthorized charges on your credit card.
Let's talk about keyloggers.
Keyloggers are a type of spyware that record your keystrokes, which can be super dangerous because they can steal your passwords and other sensitive info. We could talk about how they work, or maybe some famous cases of keylogger use. What piques your interest the most?
Let's talk in technical terms of how they work.
Okay, so keyloggers can work in a few different ways. Some software-based keyloggers hook into your operating system to intercept keystrokes as they happen. Others might use specialized hardware that sits between your keyboard and computer to record everything you type. And then there are those that use a combination of both methods for maximum sneakiness.
What are good ways for preventing keyloggers?
Okay, so to keep keyloggers out, it's super important to have strong antivirus software running on your computer. Also, be careful about clicking on links or downloading files from unknown sources. That's a classic way for keyloggers to sneak in. And of course, regularly changing your passwords is always a good idea. We can talk more about specific antivirus software or password management tips if you'd like.
Let's jump into logic bombs.
Logic bombs are a type of malware that lies dormant until a specific condition is met, like a certain date or time. Then, boom, they unleash their payload, which could be anything from deleting files to crashing your system. We could talk about some famous logic bomb attacks, or maybe how to detect them. What sounds more interesting to you?
Maybe can you explain to me how logic bombs are not independent malicious programs?
Sure. Logic bombs aren't independent programs. They're actually snippets of code hidden inside other programs or systems. Think of them like a hidden switch waiting to be flipped. Once the trigger condition is met, the switch flips and the malicious code executes.
So, would the ways to track it be harder?
Yeah, logic bombs can be really tough to track down because they're designed to be sneaky. They often hide within legitimate-looking code and don't activate until a specific event. It's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack, but the needle is also invisible until it wants to be seen.
So, what would be the best ways to see them?
Okay, so to catch logic bombs, you'll need to do some serious code analysis. It's kind of like being a detective, looking for any suspicious lines of code that might trigger something bad. You'll also want to keep a close eye on your system logs for any unusual activity. We can talk more about specific code analysis techniques or log monitoring tools if you'd like.
Yeah, what would be some good code analysis techniques to find logic bombs?
Okay, so to find logic bombs, you'll want to use a combination of automated and manual techniques. Static analysis tools can scan the code for suspicious patterns, while dynamic analysis involves running the code in a controlled environment to see what it does. You might also want to look for any hidden or unusual code comments, as logic bombs sometimes try to blend in with the legitimate code.
Let's talk about rootkits.
Rootkits are a type of malware that hides itself deep within your operating system, making them incredibly difficult to detect. We could talk about the different types of rootkits, or maybe how to spot them. What piques your interest the most?
Let's talk about the different types of rootkits.
Okay, so rootkits come in a few different flavors, each with its own level of sneakiness. There are user mode rootkits that operate at the application level, and then there are kernel mode rootkits that burrow deeper into the operating system. And let's not forget hybrid rootkits, which combine elements of both for maximum stealth. We could delve into the specifics of each type, or maybe discuss how they manage to stay hidden. What piques your interest the most?
How they manage to stay hidden.
Okay, so rootkits are masters of disguise. They often replace system files with modified versions that look identical to the originals. They might also use encryption or compression techniques to hide their code, or even disable security software to avoid detection. It's like they're wearing an invisibility cloak made of code.
Wow.
Yeah, rootkits are seriously sneaky. They're like the ninjas of the malware world, always one step ahead. It's a constant arms race between them and security researchers.
So a good way of getting rid of them would be what?
Okay, so getting rid of rootkits can be tricky because they burrow so deep into your system. Sometimes, the best option is to wipe your hard drive clean and reinstall everything, but there are also specialized tools that can help detect and remove them. We can talk more about specific removal methods or recommended tools if you'd like.
Let's talk about awareness and how is that often the most effective tool?
You're absolutely right. When it comes to cybersecurity, knowledge is power. The more people understand about the different types of threats and how to spot them, the better they can protect themselves and their organizations. We could talk about specific training programs or awareness campaigns if you'd like.
I actually have some questions for you.
I'm ready for your questions. What's on your mind?
Eli wants to prevent logic bombs created by insider threats from impacting his organization. What technique will most effectively limit the likelihood of logic bombs being put in place? A. Deploying antivirus software. B. Using a code review process. C. Deploying endpoint detection and response software. Or D. Disabling auto-run for USB drives.
I think the best answer here is B, using a code review process. This would catch any suspicious code before it gets implemented. Do you want to explore why the other options aren't as effective?
No, I have another question.
Okay, shoot. I'm ready for your next question.
Eli notices traffic between his system and a known malicious host on TCP port 6667. What type of traffic is he most likely detecting? A. Command and control. B. Spyware. C. A worm. Or D. A hijacked web browser.
The answer is A, command and control. This type of traffic is used by attackers to control infected systems. Want me to elaborate on why the other options aren't the best fit?
No. What type of malware is used to gather information about a user's browsing habits and system? A. A Trojan. B. Bloatware. C. Spyware. Or D. A rootkit.
The answer is C, spyware. This type of malware is specifically designed to gather information about a user's activities. Should we explore why the other options aren't the best fit?
No. A system in Eli's company has suddenly displayed a message demanding payment in Bitcoin and claiming that the data from the system has been encrypted. What type of malware has Eli likely encountered? A. Worms, B. A virus, C. Ransomware, or D. Rootkit?
The answer is C. Ransomware. This type of malware encrypts files and demands payment for their release. Would you like to know why the other options aren't the best fit?
Sure.
Okay, so worms are self-replicating programs that spread across networks, viruses attach themselves to files and execute malicious code, and rootkits hide malicious activity within a system. These don't quite fit the scenario of encrypted data and a ransom demand, which is the hallmark of ransomware.
Eli's security team reports that a recent WordPress vulnerability seems to have been exploited by malware and that their organization's entire WordPress service cluster has been infected. What type of malware is most likely involved in a vulnerability in the software was exploited over the network? A. A logic bomb. B. A Trojan. C. A worm. Or D. A rootkit?
The answer is C. A worm. Worms are self-replicating and can spread across networks, exploiting vulnerabilities in software. Should we explore why the other options aren't the best fit?
Yeah.
Okay, so logic bombs are triggered by specific conditions, Trojans disguise themselves as legitimate software, and rootkits hide malicious activity within a system. These don't quite fit the scenario of a self-replicating program exploiting a software vulnerability to spread across a network, which is the hallmark of a worm.
Eli wants to analyze Python code that he believes may be malicious code written by an employee of his organization. What can he do to determine if the code is malicious? A. Run a decompiler against it to allow him to read the code. B. Open the file using a text editor to review the code. C. Test the code using an antivirus tool. Or D. Submit the Python code to a malware testing website.
The best option here is D, submitting the Python code to a malware testing website. These websites use multiple antivirus engines to analyze files and can often detect malicious code even if it's not detected by a single antivirus program. Do you want to know why the other options aren't as effective?
Yes.
Okay, so running a decompiler might give you the code, but it's not foolproof for detecting malicious intent. Opening it in a text editor is risky, as you might accidentally trigger something, and antivirus tools are good, but they're not always perfect at catching everything. Malware testing websites are specifically designed for this purpose, using multiple engines to give you a more comprehensive analysis.
Which of the following defenses is most likely to prevent Trojan installation? A. Installing patches for known vulnerabilities. B. Preventing downloads from application stores. C. Preventing the use of USB drives. Or D. Disabling auto run from USB drives.
The answer is A. Installing patches for known vulnerabilities is most likely to prevent Trojan installation. Trojans often exploit software vulnerabilities to gain access to a system. Want me to elaborate on why the other options aren't the best fit?
Yes.
Okay, so preventing downloads from app stores might seem like a good idea, but it's not practical for most users. Preventing the use of USB drives and disabling auto-run can help, but they don't address the core issue of software vulnerabilities. Patching those vulnerabilities is the most direct way to stop Trojans from getting in. Alright, I'm ready for your questions. What's the first thing you'd like to know?
I think we are good with studying for today. We'll pick up on the next chapter tomorrow.
Sounds like a plan. Let me know when you're ready to dive into that next chapter.